Hello and welcome to another AARP Arizona Happy Hour virtual tour. I am Brenda with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that is dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to the more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families: health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, the AARP Magazine and the AARP Bulletin. During this month, AARP will offer events and enriching experiences close to home and from your home that help you make connections and serve others. While our situations are different, our need for connection is universal. Now more than ever, we know that connecting with family and friends is vital to aging well and living longer and having happier lives. Visit us at aarp.org/AZ for more information. Thank you again for attending, and with that, I will turn things over to Marshall.
Folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy that you can join us, and however you are watching, whether it is or listening, because you can watch it now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and they're also now going up on Spotify as podcast, so you can watch them there or on YouTube. If you miss an episode, you can go back and check it out. And so my name is Marshall Shore, and I am your host thank you, Deb. Indeed, yesterday was my birthday. So, had all kinds of fun. So my name is Marshall Shore. I'm also called the Hip Historian, which means I get to have fun and play with Arizona history. And so some of the things I've been doing, and actually, I changed the order of some things. So we're going to go and talk about September 14th. So, all right. So back in 1935, they announced that they were going to do a description of the Grand Canyon and what was called Boulder Dam, now called Hoover Dam, from an airplane 1,000 feet off the ground, and people could sit by their radio and listen to a description of somebody flying through and over the Grand Canyon. That was back before so many folks could get to the Grand Canyon. So how exciting. That was a completely different time when folks really lived by their radio, listening to, and a radio was often a luxury. All right. So it is also Rose Tequila Day. So Rose Tequila they basically age tequila in red wine barrels, which gives it a pink color. And so, maybe a really good thing to watch while you watch the Barbie movie. Have a little bit of pink tequila. So it is also National Coloring Day. I agree. I love old radio and new radio. I love all those old radio shows. So it is Live Creative Day. Creativity has really become associated with that outside of the box thinking, ideas that stand out from the crowd, and applies now to every aspect of life, from workplace to cooking to home life, and oh, so much. Now, it is also National Gobstopper Day. The gobstoppers can actually be traced back to ancient Egypt, where those sweets were created using natural ingredients from fruit, nuts, things like that. And then the machine age happened. And in the 1700s, machines made those gobstoppers. They really became famous with Roald Dahl and the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and those everlasting gobstoppers. Also, it is National Coloring Day. It used to be coloring was just for kids. It is now an adult thing. I've got so many friends who have coloring apps on their iPads, on their computers, actually print out pages to color, have coloring parties. So however you choose to celebrate, go for it. So what can you expect tonight? Well, we've got little Arizona. We've got a little bit of music history, as well as trivia, a beverage, and of course, a super special guest. So, as I said, my name is Marshall Shore. I'm also the hip historian. And so, it's been a really hectic week. I am on the roster for Arizona Humanities. And so coming up, next weekend, I'm going to be over at Central Arizona College talking about LGBTQ history in Arizona. So that's going to be a fun program. I'm glad to see some of you are here, and, you can go to the Tempe Museum at another point and see the incredible Tempe sign exhibit they've got up there. So I know they've done a great job putting that together. And so that's going to be a lot of fun to go see. And then coming up in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be out in Litchfield talking about just that. Neon signs and kind of how Arizona has become a hotbed of signage and neon preservation. So if you are available on the 26th and you happen to be in Litchfield Park, swing by the library. And also, oh my gosh, so coming up on Saturday, the Sunny Slope Museum is hosting 60 Years of Legend City. So they've done a great job of pulling all kinds of things together, from Aquanetta dolls to so much more. So that's going to be a really fun show. And they'll also have Pac McMahon out there chatting. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, if you check in Phoenix Magazine, you'll see they named me one of 4 accidental fashion icons. Not so sure it's accidental, but, I guess they had to call it something. We are getting ready for, in a couple of weeks, doing Banned Book Week at the Alwyn House. This will be the 6th one we've been doing. We've got a great host of readers. We're just now starting to push that out, so you can go to hiphistorian.com and get yourself some tickets. It's going to be a fun night as we share things like Huckleberry Finn, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, and so much more. And our host is the esteemed Sister Sermon Visage. And so coming up next year, the Orpheum is celebrating 95 years of being open. And so today I started my morning actually with the beautiful Pyra Sutra, as we did an amazing photo shoot. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have some really cool photos from that. Tickets should be available hopefully next week for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. So be sure to check that out as well. That is an educational burlesque show, Arizona Unzipped. And then we also this week did a promo for on Saturday, November 4th, Grand Avenue Festival returns. And so they've been doing this for over a dozen years, and it's always so much fun. Grand Avenue has really changed. So it's a lot of fun to come out and just celebrate those local businesses, the food. They're going to have food trucks, art cars, so much going on. And then, oh my gosh, the fair is opening up next week. So that's very exciting. So we're actually trying to put together we'll see if we can get it done by the opening of the fair, but doing some history tours on QR codes. So a self-guided tour of the grandstands. So we're kind of in the throes of putting that together. I don't know when that's going to go live, but I will definitely let you all know as we get close. As well as, indeed, I figured out how to get things up on Spotify. So I've been doing a blockbuster job of getting old episodes now up on Spotify. So you can always, I see many of you have found the chat. If you say you want to recommend a speaker or something else, you can always reach out to me through Facebook, Instagram, email, or through my website. I love to hear from you all. And so it would not be happy hour without a beverage. And so tonight we are doing Tequila Sunrise, developed in the 30s by Gene Sulet. He was at the Arizona Biltmore, and it was right after Prohibition, and somebody was tired of kind of all those cocktails trying to mask the bad booze they were using. So he created the original Tequila Sunrise, which was just tequila, orange juice, and grenadine. And you can still order that today. And what's really cool about this, so the Renaissance Hotel has my friend Rhonda, who's been there for 47 years. She actually used to work at the Arizona Biltmore with Gene. I just found that out today. So she's going to be a guest hopefully in October. So I've got to work with her on that. So maybe we might have some Gene Sulet trivia. That should be fun. And then Little Arizona, where we get a chance to not just talk about Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, but one of those small towns. And so we are going to talk about Wickenburg, which is in Yavapai County, has a population of just over 7,500, and was founded in 1863 by Henry Wickenburg. So he discovered gold, and lots of it, created Vulture Mine, which even though it is no longer an active mine, you can still go. Now, what's interesting is there is still mining going on nearby. And so they actually started bringing some of the buildings and preserving them and bringing them in. So you can come to Vulture City and see some of those original buildings in place. Some have been moved to preserve them. So that's always a fun adventure. And as kind of mining went away, all those ranchers started opening up their ranches for paying guests who wanted to have that Wild West experience. So you can go hang out in KL Bar's adobe buildings. You can go Flying E Ranch, have family style meals. And if you really want that luxe experience, Rancho de los Caballeros. So, and it is indeed Dude Ranch's Central. It is also home to the Desert Caballeros Museum, which has a world-renowned collection of art, historic exhibits. I've presented a couple times up there. They have as kind of their historian on staff, Eduardo Pagan. And so he has been a guest. And so I need to get him back on talking about some of the stuff they're doing up at the museum. And if you go visit, you definitely want to go check out. I mean, when you talk about neon, the fact that the Saguaro Theater opened its doors back in 1948. It was showing first-run movies, and now they do a wide variety of old movies, as well as historical presentations, as well, working with the museum. And then you can always go visit the Hassayampa River Preserve, which is over 700 acres with over 280 species of birds that live there, nest there, or migrate through there. And you can go on many self-guided tours. All right. Well, now is a chance we get to talk to someone else other than just getting to hear my voice. So let me bring on my friend Dave. Hello.
Hello, Marshall. That was a heck of a lot of great information in a short amount of time. I'm going to go back and watch this all over again so I can take notes, because that was awesome.
I mean, it was a busy week. So.
We had a very busy week. And Tequila Sunrises, holy cow, I grew up on those. So, well, I didn't grow up on them.
And so, do you happen to have a beverage tonight?
Oh, of course. I call it the Barrington. So it's basically a vodka martini with a pickle, which is named after the main character from the first 7 of my murder mysteries. And that's what he drank. He drank a vodka martini with a pickle. So in honor of him.
So
cheers.
Dave, for those of those that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the books you've written.
Yeah, I'm a murder mystery author, so I love to kill people, so to speak. Only on paper. Let me clarify that. Only on paper. So yeah, I write historical novels, so it's really interesting being on your show and talking about history, because my books they all take place in the 40s. Death's Prelude, which you see up there on your screen, that was taken place in 1936. on the original Queen Mary as she sails to England. And of course, I love ocean liners as well, especially the Queen Mary. She's dear in my heart. So the first half of that whole book is on the Queen Mary. So they all take place in the 30s and 40s. They all have gay detectives, closeted, of course, because it's the 30s and the 40s, but they still manage to have some fun. And along the way, they solve a lot of mysteries.
Indeed. And so we have some trivia coming up, and it's really highlighting some of those locations that are featured in those books.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do trivia a little differently here than bar trivia, where we're more interested in so we'll go through the questions with the multiple choice answers. So even if you don't know the answer, all you got to do is guess. Now you can keep track of it in the chat session. Some folks keep track of it in special notebooks. Again, however, if you have coloring pages, you can, with crayons, you can write down, because no one's going to grade your trivia other than you. But then the beautiful thing is we're going to come back and talk about those answers. And that's where the fun really starts happening.
I'm excited.
All right. So question 1. Roy's Buffet became Hubbard's 307 Club. In the 50s, it was considered to be gay-friendly. It was redeveloped into apartments. And it was known for what in the 80s? A speakeasy in the basement. B, karaoke. C, drag shows, including one that started at 6 a.m. Oh my gosh. Or D, Keith Haring murals on the wall. All right. So it's one of those answers. What one do you think it is? What do you think it was known for in the 80s? All right. Question 2. Muscle and Physique magazines began to appear in the 30s. Who were the primary readers of these magazines? A, bodybuilders. B, gay men. C, housewives. Or D, college co-eds. So who do you think was reading those muscle magazines back in the 30s all the way through the 50s and 60s? All right. Question 3. Sinclair glass stations were quite popular in the 30s and 40s and still exist today. Which mascot are they known for? A, an oil derrick. B, a green oil barrel. C, a vintage green 1930 Buick Series 40 Phaeton automobile, which would be quite fancy. Or D, a green dinosaur. So which one of those do you think Sinclair Gas is known for as their mascot? All right, question 4. The Orpheum Theater opened in 1929. In the 40s, it was purchased by Paramount Pictures and renamed the Paramount. What name did it go by in 1968? Was that A, the Paramount West, B, the Luminous, C, the Phoenician, or D, the Palace West? Which one of those do you think that iconic theater that is still around today was called in the late 60s? All right. Agnes Ann Leroy, Hedvig Samuelson, and Winnie Ruth Judd were roommates. What was found in the trunks of Winnie when she took with her on a train to L.A.? A disguise she used to sneak into the house that night and do some murdering. Or B, clothes she stole from the 2 dead women. Well, you can kind of see where this one's going. All right. C, the bodies. One of them dismembered. Or D, gold coins that belonged to Hedvig. So what do you think they found in Winnie's trunk or trunks when she was traveling from Phoenix to LA? All right. Question 6. Diamond Department Store in Phoenix was founded by Jewish immigrants Nathan and Isaac Diamond back in 1897. What was the original name of the store? A, Zirconias, B, Rubies, C, Nathan's, or D, the Boston Store? So which one of those do you think the Diamond Brothers first called their department store? All right. Question 7. The Union Station train depot in Phoenix opened in 1923 at 401 West Harrison Street, and it was an Amtrak station until when? Was it A, 2001, B, 1965, C, 1984, or D, 1996? So what year do you think they stopped Amtrak station or Amtrak trains coming through town with passengers? All right. Fort Huachuca in Cochise County had headquarters for over 24,000 enlisted soldiers, including the 92nd and 93rd African American Infantry Divisions. During which war? Was that A, the Korean War, B, World War I, C, World War II, or D, the Civil War? Question 9. Orange groves once covered Phoenix. They started disappearing after World War II when the land was needed for what? A, housing, B, strip malls, C, sports facilities, D, airport. All right. So which one of those do you think a lot of those orange groves became? Question 10. The El Encanto Apartments, completed back in 1939 on the corner of Central and Encanto, is now the home to what? A, the Irene Nobleman Foundation, B, the Intertribal Council of Arizona, C, Phoenix Theater headquarters, or D, the Swiss Embassy? All right. And we have a few bonus questions. So question 11, the Biltmore Hotel and Resort opened in 1929. What popular song is said to have been written while sitting poolside? By Irving Berlin. All right. Question 12. A waxing or cedar waxing bird, often found in Arizona's sycamore woodlands, is a bird known for what? A, a scarlet breast, B, tricolored feathers, C, unusual mating habits, or D, whistle. So what do you think the cedar waxing bird is known for? All right. Well, you are all locking in your final answers. We are going to take a little bit of a music break as we get a chance to talk about Wonder Woman. Indeed. You know, she was from here. She actually went to high school up in Arcadia.
I did not know.
Yeah. So she actually started at the age of 5 by being on the Lou King Show. That was where her music career started. She then was in a variety of bands, including Relatives, which was indeed Relatives, Just Us. She performed at the Sahara. She has been on so many, from The Muppet Show. So she is still a beauty, and I've yet to meet her, but everyone who has said she is super nice and is still an icon. And who doesn't love being able to spin and change clothes? I only wish it was that easy.
But you have such fabulous clothes.
All right. So, Dave, are you ready for some answers?
We are. I think we're all ready for some answers.
All right. Very good. So, Roy's Buffet became Hubbard's 307. In the 50s, was considered to be gay-friendly and redeveloped into apartments. What was it known for in the 80s?
And the answer is drag shows, including one that actually did start at 6 in the morning. And back in the day, I used to go to bed at 6 in the morning, but
well, you could have just gone right to the drag show.
I could have, right? Had I been here, we were in Wisconsin at the time.
So my neighbors used to. They were like, "Hey, if you want to join us, be out here at 5:58, so we can just roll over." So
I can't even imagine.
So yeah. And so one thing I think is interesting about the 307 is it actually is the original address of Roy's Buffet. Mm-hmm. And then it later moved to 222 East Roosevelt, which then became apartments. Yep. And if you walk along there now, there is a plaque talking about the 307 and the fact that and you threw a couple of good red herrings out there, like with the Keith Haring mural. It wasn't a Keith Haring mural, but it was a Ted DeGrazia murals that it was known for.
Yes.
So
and Roy's Buffet was originally mentioned in Murder at the Oasis. So that's where that.
All right. Muscle and physique magazines began to appear in the 30s. Who were the primary readers of these magazines? I wonder.
Scratching my head. Could it be gay men?
Indeed. And right here in town, we had our very own George Quaintance, who did a lot of the Muscle magazine. He did covers of them. He was the art director for a few of them as well. You can see there is Havasupai Falls that he's standing next to. Probably never quite looking like that. But
unfortunately.
So his art is still around. So all right, moving on to question 3. So Sinclair gas stations were quite popular in the 30s and 40s and still exist today. Which mascot are they known for?
Here's a hint.
Indeed, a green dinosaur.
Yes, indeed, a green dinosaur. And this I actually got this from a Sinclair gas station when I got a fill-up. I think it was in Utah back in the 1980s. So I've kept him ever since. His name's Bert. He lives on my shelf.
And there is a Sinclair station in Scottsdale where they still pump your gas for you.
Oh, that I didn't know.
And so I was running out of gas and pulled up, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh no, we do that." And I was like, "Oh, that's so Jersey." And they're like, "We think we're the only one in the state that does that."
That's so 1940s. I love it.
Indeed, which I thought was kind of funny that they're still doing that.
I gotta go check them out.
All right. The Orpheum Theater opened in 1929. In the 40s, it was purchased by Paramount Pictures and renamed the Paramount. What name did it go by in the late 60s?
And the answer is D, the Palace West. And funny story, I was just there on Tuesday. We went to see Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, starring Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. So much fun.
I love that they're now starting. Right, I love they're starting to now to do classic films.
Yes, it was quite fabulous. Yeah, and they even had a woman dressed as Marilyn in the lobby, so they got picture ops and all kinds of cool stuff. It was great. If anybody hasn't been to the Orpheum for these movies, you got to go. So it was a lot of fun. And those are mentioned, I think, on all three of the. So I'll show them to you. These 3 books are the Mason Adler books. These are the ones that take place in and around Phoenix. This one takes place that one takes place in Palm Springs. And they all mention the Orpheum Theater, which was a classic house back in the day.
Indeed, would have had, all these stars would have come through on stage or on cinema.
Yep.
All right. So Agnes N. Leroy, Hedvig Samuelson, and Winnie Ruth Judd were roommates. What was found in Winnie's trunks that she took with her on a train trip to L.A.?
Oh, the answer was the bodies. One of them were actually dismembered.
Indeed.
Grisly. I have a funny story about that, Marshall, if you'll allow me.
Of course.
I have only been in Phoenix with my husband for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And we first moved here in 2020, which was, pandemic time. And we're like, everything's closed, everything's shut down. What can we do? Well, we heard about this fabulous guy named Marshall Shore who's doing these haunted walking tours. And so we're like, why not? So we signed up with you and we did your walking tour. And you are the one who inspired this book in some degree by telling us about the story of Winnie Ruth Judd. So there you go.
Indeed.
Goes around full circle.
And that's where she left from, with her trunks that had the bodies in it and parts.
Yep.
So
there you go.
All right. So Diamond's department store in Phoenix was founded by Jewish immigrants Nathan and Isaac Diamond back in 1897. What was the original name of the store?
Believe it or not, it was the Boston store, which I actually used to work for a different Boston store back in Wisconsin. So it's strange that they were both opened the same year and they were both called the Boston store, and neither one of them were in Boston.
Was there any connection?
Not that I can find. If somebody out there knows a connection, I would love to know about it. But yeah, not that I can find. It was among the first to install air conditioning, which made it very popular with shoppers, as you can imagine, back in 1931, as a matter of fact.
Wow, that would have been really early to have cool air.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Union Station train depot in Phoenix opened back in 1923 and was an operating Amtrak station until when?
I think it was actually 1996, but I could be wrong.
Oh, actually, you're right. It was 96. I was like, oh, wait a minute. It wasn't the mid 80s. It was the mid 90s. So indeed. So.
Whew, had me worried. And sadly, as you can see by this picture, it now stands vacant. There have been discussions of transforming it into an entertainment venue. I'm hoping that happens, but currently, and I really think this is a shame, there is no passenger train service in or out of Phoenix. So I think that's a shame.
Well, and a group did buy it. Right. And there was a group that bought it to turn it into an entertainment kind of venue.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually back on the market. So if anyone has some spare millions floating around, you could own a train station.
As long as they don't tear it down.
Well, exactly. I don't think they will. I think people in Phoenix would throw up a huge.
I know I would.
Yes.
And please bring passenger train service back to Phoenix.
Well, and actually Amtrak has been talking about that, and they were talking like 2035, but they've really kind of jump-started that. So they want to do it sooner. It's just a matter of, I think, where.
Good.
So, and maybe they would use the old train station, which would be kind of cool.
That would be very cool. Buddy just mentioned Depot Cantina. I'm not sure, but it sounds cool.
And so, yeah, because originally it was Sprint Storage for the longest time. And because it's on the National Register, they didn't really futz with the inside. So it pretty much looks like it did when they took it over.
Right.
Back in the mid 90s. So,
I would love to. Have you been inside?
No, I actually have friends who were there, and I tried to get my way in, but that didn't work.
I would love to be inside. If anybody has any connections, let me and Marshall know. We'll go.
Exactly. I would be happy to go inside.
Me too.
All right. Fort Huachuca in Cochise County, headquarters for over 24,000 enlisted soldiers, including 92nd and 93rd African-American Infantry Division. During which war?
That would be the big World War II. Absolutely. Yep. And that was mentioned in, I believe that was Murder at Union Station as well. So,
and also it's historic, and you can go visit.
Yes, absolutely. Very historic.
Yes. All right. Orange groves once covered Phoenix. They started disappearing after World War II when land was needed for what?
Housing. And we keep expanding and we keep spreading.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about like the David Wright House in Arcadia is the fact that the entrance is actually on the second floor. You went up a ramp, and it was intended to get you above all the orange trees so you could see. And so now they're no longer there, but you still enter on the second floor.
That's kind of cool.
So indeed. And we're lucky to still have that building as well.
Indeed. I'll drink to that.
That sounds like a heck of a good thing to drink to. All right. All right. So the El Encanto Apartments, completed back in 1939 on the corner of Central and Encanto, is now home to what?
It is now home to the Intertribal Council of Arizona. And what a beautiful building. Oh my gosh. I've never actually, I peer through the gates every time I walk by. I've never been inside, but I just love it. And actually that is where I put Mason Adler, the main detective in my Phoenix-based books. That's where he lives, because it was 1946.
Oh, so right. It would have been an active apartment building at that point.
Exactly. And it was actually the largest apartment building back then. It had 21 apartments. It was Phoenix's largest apartment.
Oh, what a different world we live in.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like a floor of some of these buildings now have that or more apartments.
Yeah. Crazy. And they didn't have a pool that I know of. So there you go.
You know, most places didn't have pools.
No. Well, hotels. That was about it.
All right. Question 11. The Phoenix Biltmore Hotel and Resort opened in 29. What popular song is said to have been written while sitting poolside?
Strangely enough, it is White Christmas. Who would think that White Christmas was written in Phoenix? But I guess it makes sense, because you're sitting in the sunshine surrounded by palm trees, and you're dreaming of the snow. And people who are sitting in the snow are dreaming of sitting in the sunshine.
Exactly. You always want what you can't have. So.
Exactly. I want one of those bodybuilders. So, there you go.
You know, you can just buy one of the issues, and there you go. You can have one.
I've got them all under my mattress, so it's all right.
All right. And the waxwing or cedar waxwing bird, often found in Arizona's sycamore woodlands, is a bird known for what? Very cool.
Yep. I think it's a beautiful bird, and I think it's kind of neat. So I had to put that one in there too. And it is mentioned in some of the books. So, wow. Did we go through all those questions already?
Yeah. And, and one of the things I think is so interesting is, like, people don't think Arizona, I mean, people from outside of Arizona think it's just desert, but we have so many birding places. I mean, in Southern Arizona, you've got hummingbirds. You've got so many different places to go and see so many different birds.
Absolutely.
And so, as well as plants. I mean, we've got so many plants that grow here that don't grow anywhere else, which is interesting.
Yep. I have friends back in Wisconsin that still think I live in a tent in the sand dunes. So,
and you don't?
Well, that's my weekend home.
Oh, when you go glamping.
And when I get up for the 6 a.m. drag show. So.
That's right. You just pitch a tent in the parking lot and go.
Absolutely.
So I always like to end with, how did people do?
I'd like to know.
So, because, I think it's like, it's not necessarily how many you got right or wrong, but now when you go to cocktail parties, which we're now going to again, look at all the fodder you have to be able to talk over while you're having your martini with a pickle or whatever you choose.
Or a tequila sunrise.
Exactly. I mean, or now there's more and more distilleries here that are doing a wide variety of different things.
They absolutely are.
Oh, see, Sarah got 7 out of 12. So that's really good.
That's really good. Good
so
job,
Dave,
Sarah.
how long have you been in Arizona?
I have been here just over 3 years.
Oh, that's right, because you said 2020.
2020, yeah. I moved in August of 2020. So it was a crazy time to come down here in the heat and the COVID and everything else. So I was so delighted to do your walking tour, and you were absolutely charming and so much fun and really interesting. So if you have not done Marshall's tours,
I can already see Deb harangue me going, we've got to pick out dates. So indeed. So yeah, so we do have to get some dates in October. It's kind of
I would totally do it again.
Well, and
I want to say hi to Andre Drew Burns, because he looks like a fun person.
Well, you have lots of fun people here. I mean,
there's a ton of fun people.
Indeed. I mean, Anita got 9 out of 12.
Wow.
Oh, and Suad got a few of them right. I'm sure he got more than a few right. I have a feeling. So he was one of the co-authors of Phoenix History, the Arcadia book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
and as you always say, there's lots of history in Phoenix. So
and that's the thing. I mean, there's so many stories that it's like I'm always learning more and more.
Yep.
So
That's one of the fun things I love is doing the research for my books and hopefully getting all the correction, all the things right, because there's so much out there. It's just
Well, there's so much. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, that's like, as we're looking at like the grandstand, so much history is in the grandstand.
Yeah.
So,
yep. More than people realize.
Indeed. And I mean, the fair is opening up next week, and it's been there since 1905.
Yep. I'm excited.
So, yeah.
You're going to be there? Is that what you said?
So, yeah. So we are going to be doing some QR code tours of at least the grandstand. I should have put it down, but I know in October I'm going to be doing bingo at the fairgrounds. So
69.
Indeed. So it's a family-friendly event, so we don't really stress 069.
Oh, there you go.
So,
that's a number.
It is indeed, but I don't want to get the folks in the fair. But I love going to the fair, so
it's a lot of fun.
It is indeed. So Dave, thank you so much for coming on and sharing stories from your books of your Arizona adventures. So do you have any favorite places in Arizona? Have you been as you've been traveling around?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we moved down here in 2020, I mean, there wasn't a lot to do except travel around and check out the site. So when our first trip was up to the Grand Canyon in late October. It was freezing. Felt right at home. But it was beautiful. There was nobody there. I had the place basically to ourselves. So that was really cool. I mean, I haven't been back since, but I definitely actually I was back once, but I'd love to go back again. The Grand Canyon is truly the Grand Canyon State, and it is truly amazing. So
have you taken the train?
That's on my list.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun.
I so want to do that.
So I did it earlier this year and discovered that they basically just take your luggage from the train to your hotel. Cause I was like, oh, I've got to drag it over. And no, they're like, oh no, we just take it right to your hotel. I was like, oh, that's even better.
That is way better.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole state is beautiful and it's so diverse. There's so many different things going on with the ecology and
right. The White Mountains, the Black Mountains,
the desert, but then there's also lakes and flowers and birds like the waxwing and all kinds of things. So.
Exactly. So much going on. All right, Dave, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Your passion for Arizona. Any books you're working on as we speak?
Yeah, I'm excited actually. My publisher already has picked up the next book. So there are 7 in the Heath Barrington series, which is basically more or less take place in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, which is where I'm from, except for, like I mentioned, Death's Prelude, which takes place on the Queen Mary. And then the 3 Mason Adlers, which take place, the first 2 strictly in Phoenix, and the third starts in Phoenix and then goes to Palm Springs as they get a little getaway mixed with murder. And then, my publisher just picked up the 11th book, and that'll be out next year sometime. That's entitled Puzzles Can Be Deadly, and that is neither a Heath nor a Mason book, right? It's totally different. So it's kind of a cozy mystery. Not they're amateur detectives, so something new. It's kind of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool. Well, Dave, again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Marshall. You likewise, and belated happy birthday again.
Thank you so much. All right, so now we are to From the Vault. And so what we're going to talk about is, since we're kind of talking about gay writers, I thought, let's talk about a little piece of Arizona history. So back on November 5th, 1871. So we talked about Wickenburg. And so there was a stagecoach that was going from Wickenburg east, and it got a few miles outside of Wickenburg, and it was attacked. And so 6 people were murdered. 2 folks escaped. There's debate in terms of who actually did the attacking. Did the survivors have a hand in it? Was it folks that were masquerading as someone else? So kind of steeped in a little bit of mystery there. But on that on that wagon train was Frederick Wadsworth Loring. So he had just published Two College Friends, which talks about basically him and his best friend in college. So back in 1871, it was kind of an early gay romance novel talking about how deep their friendship was. And so he is buried up in Wickenburg. You can see where the site actually is and where the historical dock or the marker is on the highway, but you can still see the grave sites where they pretty much were buried where they fell. So that is just outside of Wickenburg. If you're ever up that way, you can go see the Desert Caballeros Museum. There's lots of artisan up there, lots of places to go see and do all kinds of fun things. So now you'll see why I always say, if you're watching on Facebook, you should share because, look how much fun we're having with Arizona history. And so next week we have Kathy Blaze Jefferson on as our guest. So that is Thursday, the 21st. So be here. We'll be having a lot of fun with her. All right. So as we get ready to say goodnight, I want to give a shout out to Chris and Cole, who did that great little video, and as well as PJ, who always keeps me up on either the latest or historical boozy things going on. So, so Anita was just reading about the massacre just a couple hours ago in one of Marshall Trimble's books. Yeah, but he probably didn't talk about Loring and all the books that he wrote. So, all right. Well, as we get ready to say goodnight, let's end with the Student Emmy Award-winning bit that we did with Cronkite, talking about Nikolai de Raylan, a gender pioneer from 1906. All right. I will see you all next week.
Imagine the way Arizona looked in the early 1900s. The streets, the people, with stories beyond the documented black and white.
People kept saying there was no history here.
But Marshall Shores sees history in color.
I'm known as Arizona's hip historian.
Also known as a local celebrity.
So I want to welcome you to Arizona History Happy Hour.
One of Marshall's friends, Erica Kempler, watched his audience skyrocket and said it's for a good reason.
He doesn't simply study history, he's actually trying to make a significant mark in it.
And Marshall made his footprint in history at Greenwood Cemetery in Phoenix, a lawn that celebrates the people who defined Arizona.
You can tell a lot about a city by going and visiting a cemetery and seeing its history.
To Marshall, each stone in Greenwood Cemetery represents a life with a story to share. But in the case of Nikolai de Raylan, it was the absence of a headstone that made it so significant.
It's a really amazing story.
Nikolai de Raylan visited Arizona to treat his tuberculosis.
It didn't go so well for him. He wound up passing away a few months later.
He left behind mounds of wealth and his beloved wife, Anna.
As they're ready for burial, they discovered that Nikolai was a woman. And so when they buried him here in Greenwood in 1906, they actually buried him in a dress and without a headstone.
Erica, who is also the founder of Arizona Trans Alliance, says his story is remarkable.
It really does say here's a person who managed to live a life with a tremendous secret that would have undoubtedly destroyed his life.
Nikolai had enough money to afford a traditional burial, but Marshall explained that his unmarked grave was a sign of disrespect.
Without a headstone, he was erased from time.
Then came an idea.
When I found out that we had a gender pioneer right here in Arizona from 1906, I started working with the local community to raise funds to get him a headstone.
It was really through his invitation I became a part of it.
They capitalized efforts through social media and word of mouth.
Going to bars and people giving money here, giving money there.
In 2 years, they raised over $3,000, but the question remained, what should it say?
It was my opinion that what we put on the headstone shouldn't be outing. should not out him as trans.
My friend Erica came up with this quote, and I was like, oh my God, that is perfect.
A quote that speaks truth to Nikolai and the entire transgender community.
To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
Now the headstone stands among the masses, securing Nikolai's spot in Arizona's LGBTQ history.
So that's one of the things I try to give those marginalized communities a voice.
A contribution that also writes Marshall into Arizona's story. In Phoenix, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.